Okay, hopefully you'll join me on a little journey today. This is kind of going to give us hopefully some thicker kind of lead tones and sort of tones in general. The idea with this video is to add some kind of reflections that give that illusion of really being in a space with the guitar amp versus the kind of more close mic'd vibe that we've got going on. I've actually mixed in a couple of ideas here really. The key one here is from Cliff himself, and so this is sort of one of the aspects of what I'm doing. So this thread is called Amp in the Room ? From Cliff, and gives an idea about what to try, essentially using a filter block after the amp instead of a cap. But what I'm doing is actually both of those things, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But if you want to grab the preset, this will be in my Gumroad folder. It should work on FM3, FM9 and XFX3. You'll see it's really pretty low CPU, so no crazy things going on here. It's not maybe the sort of thing that you'd necessarily want to do live, but for practice maybe, and for an effect, you might find this useful. These videos are brought to you by G66 UK, and that's the place in the UK to get your FM3, FM9 or XFX3 with no waitlist. So we've got 4 scenes here, so let's just start with our clean. So our thick clean. Moving through the scenes, we go up in gain, so this is now thick low gain lead, which is using the Bassman instead, 65 Bassman. You can hear that if I get rid of this delay, it's still a pretty full sound around the stereo field. So then thick lead is kind of then into an ODS HRM. And then if you want even more of that, we stick a compressor up front, which is kicking things into overdrive. So what is actually going on here? So basically, it's quite a simple thing. Here we've got just a normal cab. If I set this to bypass mode mute, then you'll see basically what this would have sounded like. It's a much different possibly, you know, less directional. It sort of reminds me of this thing that sometimes I've heard on an album where an acoustic guitar sounds like it's coming from more places than one, but it's not double tracked, if you know what I mean, where it just sounds like a really well recorded thing going on. Anyway, so this is the part in question, which is doing some stuff. So we've got a filter block here set to low pass, 4th order, the frequency set to around 5,000 Hertz, the low cut set to 20 Hertz, and the high cut set to about 5,000 Hertz. Again, so we've got the frequency and the high cut set to about 5,000 Hertz. Then we go into a graphic EQ. So here we've got a 10 band variable. I'm pushing 63 a touch, pushing 125 a touch, pushing 250 a touch, dropping 1K and 2K a touch, upping 4K a touch, and dropping 8 and 16K a touch. Then we go into a dual delay. Now here, I guess is where we're getting something slightly interesting happening. So this would be, if I set this to set the level here. So if we get rid of this delay, it's not actually that dissimilar to the sound of a cab. So that was the point of what Cliff was putting together, which was, you know, just essentially using the filter block and an EQ in place of a cab. But that's to get kind of, so what a kind of IR or microphone on a cab actually does is filter out a bunch of frequencies, right? Or highlights other frequencies. So this is a way of getting some of those that we've lost back in, essentially, and then this delay block spreads them around the stereo field. So we've got on the left-hand side a 15 millisecond delay, on the right-hand a 45 millisecond delay. So you can imagine that sort of places you in the space a little bit closer to the left-hand wall, essentially. But yeah, and then 0 feedback on that, but 100% mix, and that gives you Allan Holdsworth also used to do something like this with the Yamaha Hugest Stomp, where he'd have these 2 repeats that would be close together and then a bunch more that would be further apart. You can actually simulate or see that in the multi-tap block. Where are you? Multi-tap. So if you look for the Allan Holdsworth lead long, for example, you should see that one of these delays, maybe not this one, it would be lead short, will give you a fairly short tap. There you are, look, 26 milliseconds and 41, and then delays 3 and 4, 96 and 112, and that kind of does a somewhat similar thing. You maybe try even switching that in for there instead. Need to set the mix higher. definitely something worth thinking about if you've not tried this sort of thing before. Again, not necessarily the sort of thing you're going to use all the time, but used occasionally might be able to give you some other kind of ideas, things you might not have tried before. I know I certainly hadn't tried this before, but you know, combining a couple of ideas, one from Cliff, one from Allan Holdsworth, to create a somewhat thicker tone that fills up the stereo space. Yeah, so grab this in the folder if you want, the Gumroad folder. £5 for access to all of my Fractal presets, so hopefully you find some stuff in there that might be useful for you. I'll catch you in another video soon. Thanks to G66. Cheers for stopping by.